Thank you for joining us. And before we get started with today's video, if you guys like what you're seeing and hearing from the Locked On Senators podcast, go ahead and hit like, smash the subscribe button so you can be the first to know about Sens content. Now, we're going to be doing a ton of these prospect profiles, so if you agree this is someone the Sens should look at or steer clear, leave your comment below so we can hear from you. Now, we got 64 of these, so let's get into it.
All right, Pillsy, back to the countdown we go. We are officially into the 30s. And as we have, it's been all American, Swedes, Canadians with one Czech player, Sapovaliv as well. Couple Russians there, but it seems like we are really getting a good draft for Canadians. And we've got one here coming in at 39th on our rankings with an average of 30. Where's the average here? 38.6. So talk about how tight this is on today's list of all these three. 38.6 from the Mississauga Steelheads, centerman Owen Beck.
And Ross, we've been teasing it. This is the prospect that is from the Bay of Quinte area. He's from Port Hope, Ontario. Very close. Up. Yeah, stand up, Port Hope. Very close to Belleville.
How many times have we frequented the Port Hope McDonald's on the way back from Belleville?
I honestly think every single time. So, I mean, that was our budget at the time. That's what we could go for on the way home from Belleville.
Oh yeah, well, Owen Beck hasn't been stopping at the McDonald's. This guy's a beast, man. He's a solid skating centerman. I think he's a guy who projects at the center ice position at the next level. Let's take a peek at his profile. He is a 6 foot, 185 pound centerman who had 21 goals, 30 assists, worth 51 points in 68 games this year for Mississauga. Only 14 penalty minutes as well, which I was impressed with. He's as high as 20th, which is on Elite Prospects. He's 29th for Chris Peters. He is 39th for Craig Button, 47th for Scott Wheeler, and 58th for Craig Button with an average of 38.6. I put in big letters, Bay of Quinte native, because as we saw with Ben Roger, the Ottawa Senators like to draft local. And we've seen that before. You know, Cody Ceci, there was that story with Andrei Vasilevsky the other day. We don't have to get into that. No. But what do you think he brings as his best strength to the table?
What I really like about Owen Beck, Ross, is he has really good patience. Like, I was watching his highlights for the Mississauga Steelheads, and what he's able to do is he's able to kind of hold on to the puck, hold on to it, and a defender's keeping his gap control, and then the defender's like, okay, he can't possibly hold on to the puck anymore. I'm going to attack him now. And then it's at that moment that he decides to make a move. And he's able to time that really well. And I find that's a really good skill to have because it creates space for your teammates, because now the defender that's trying to stop you is getting closer and closer to you, and you've created more space for your line mates. And he's able to outweigh his opponents and then make the play. His opponents, they just have a really hard time reading what he's going to do. You never know what Owen Beck can do, and he has nice hands in tight spots. So that's why he's confident enough to let the opponent get close to him to create that space, because he knows he's going to be able to make a move.
Yeah, 100%. I think he's one of the safer projections in this range. His floor is basically a third-line center, because you know that at the very least you are getting a defensively responsible guy who killed penalties all year long. He just brings so much confidence on that side of the puck. Like, how many times did I watch like him break up a play where it's just a pass to the top of the umbrella? He's like, nah, I'm good, going the other way. Now what really is in question still, and we need to mention with all these OHL kids, did not play at all last year. So how did that stunt his development? I think maybe we'll see more offense next season out of him, because that's the one missing piece of this. Only 1 goal in his last 10 games this season. No goals in his last 5. That to say, still a plus 17 player, and that I guess speaks a little bit more defensively. Now, they played Hamilton in the first round of the playoffs. Again, Hamilton has not lost in the playoffs going into the final. That's a tough matchup for him going up against Mason McTavish there with them, but he was great in the series against Barrie. 4 assists in the last 3 games there for them to move on. So it was the second round they lost to Hamilton, not the first round there. But what I'd love to see from him is a little bit more finishing ability. Now, when I was watching the Elite Prospects scouting meeting, Lauren Kelly, who covers the OHL for them, just said the only thing holding him back from being like a mid first round pick is the offensive production. But she noted that he is just getting robbed left, right, and center. He's creating much more than he is finishing. And I don't know if that's running into hot goalies every single night. You got to think at some point you break through.
Yeah.
But he could be a guy who we see have a huge draft +1 season. And then all of a sudden we're like, wait, how the hell did this guy go in the late first round, early second round? This guy's a stud. So I think that he's a buy low candidate at this range in the draft where we have him at, all the way in the late 30s. So I'm pretty high on him at this projection because he will be an NHL player. And these other guys, like there's things that could be holding them back where they're maybe top line AHL guys at the end of the day. But Owen Beck, to me, within 3-4 years, you're going to see him on a third, fourth line in the NHL.
Yeah, and that's fair. And that makes a lot of sense, Ross, because like I was saying, he's able to outweight his opponents and then get into good chances, but he's just not finishing on those chances. But I mean, getting to high danger scoring opportunities is half the battle, right? Like some of these players, they can't even dream of getting to these spots that he's getting to on the ice. So being able to finish without being able to set up, that doesn't really work out. So he's at least able to set it up now. Like you said, only his first season in the OHL, give him some more time in junior so he can be able to kind of maybe have a little bit of a quicker release, maybe some shot deception, some angle deception, work on the goalies a little, and you could see him having a lot of success. And I think what's good to note about him too is, yes, I also think he'll be a centerman in the pro leagues because he's able to play both sides of special teams too. So he can kill penalties, he can play on the power play, and McKeen's Hockey, they said that he's hands down one of the fastest skaters in the draft. So
perfect.
That also goes into the scenario that I'm saying is he's able to get to these spots because he's so damn fast. But then what do you do when you get there? So that's where he's going to have to work. And hey, he's shined in consecutive moments. Like he was Rookie of the Month in the OHL in November with 11 points in 11 games. So he's got it in him. It's just he's not able to kind of always finish those big plays.
Right. And I think that is a bit of the whole problem, which is no fault of his own, of not having that full season worth of development. I'm super high on this kid. The more I talk about him, the more I'm talking myself into my second 5-star guy. And I'm going for it. Woo! I got 5 stars for the Ottawa Senators to select Port Hope's finest, Owen Beck. He is a February 3rd birthday. We'll pull up his Elite Prospects page right now. February 3rd birthday, centerman. You see there that he's ranked pretty consistently throughout. Like he doesn't have the same range as some of these other guys that we've seen on the list here. 51 points, +17. I like that. 10 points or 6 points rather in 10 playoff games. Would you like to see a couple more goals? Yeah, you probably would. But at the same time, I think next year is his real coming out party. Like the offensive numbers were there playing for the Quinty Red Devils, and this guy went from midget hockey to the OHL. Like he got 2 games in junior A. Wow. Like that's a pretty big jump. And for him to make it the way he did, I think that it's just scratching the surface. So the fact that he's being deployed so much in the defensive zone, relied upon in defensive situations, I think it's going to serve him better going forward. But this offseason, you know that he's focusing on his offensive game. You know that he's watching video. How can I finish these chances that I was getting? I'm super high on him. I got him 5 stars. Where do you have him?
All right, Ross, I had him at 3.5 stars, but now that we talk a little more and now that I've heard your side and your points, I'll bump it up to 4 stars. I don't have him at a 5-star guy. I think a 5-star guy is someone with a little bit more potential to burst through a ceiling. And I think he's got a high floor, and I wouldn't say high floor, low ceiling, but no. I think there's a cap for him and he probably won't burst through that cap. So that's why I can't bump him up to 5 stars, but I got him at 4 stars because anytime you have the speed and the hockey IQ that he has, it's going to take you places.
I think I'm going to go out on a limb here. Maybe it's a little tease for tomorrow, but I would put him ahead of the next 2 guys that we're doing tomorrow.
I think we have 3 centermen tomorrow, so it'll be interesting to see how they compare.
2 centermen and a defenseman. The defenseman, Mitch Brown calls Jake Sanderson-esque. So stay tuned for all that. But the 2 forwards, both out of the OHL. I'm not going to tell you who they are, although one's a Guelph Storm. So maybe do some research there if people are trying to crack the code. But I would take him over these next 2 centermen that we're doing all day, every day. I just think he has a more projectable game to the next level. So lots of excitement here coming up as we get into the 30s. And then when we get to 2 per day, and we can really dive in. And then stay tuned because we are going to do a full 32 pick mock draft. We'll do 34 picks because then we'll do the Ottawa Senators second round picks in there as well. And we're going to try to get some special guests for that. It's going to be a YouTube exclusive, but stay tuned for all of that